All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports podcast. All right, now it's time to hit a couple of NFL storylines, wrap up of week one, and we're going to talk a little AFC South, to give you the AFC South preview that I owe you. And we're also going to talk a little Tennessee football, a sneaky team that is on the rise when destroyed NC State over the weekend, and lots of people around the country think this could be a playoff team moving forward. So, no better person to talk to than Darren McFarland, based out of Nashville, Nashville Sports Media. You can find Darren on X and Twitter at DMAC underscore NASH Sports, Nash Sports. Welcome to the podcast, Darren.
Hey, said, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, man. All right, let's get Tennessee out of the way first. Again, a very impressive performance in Charlotte over the weekend, hammering NC State. A lot of people thought that might be a trap game for them. Give me a thought or two about Josh Heupel. You got a new quarterback that everybody's excited about, Nico. I'm not even going to try to butcher his last name, but this guy's seems like he's the real deal. Give me a thought or two about Tennessee after 2 weeks.
Yeah, obviously people here are pretty jacked. Pretty excited about this Tennessee team. That's a fan base that's been suffering for a long time until Josh Heupel arrived on campus, of course, and things have changed since then. But expectations are through the roof, and yeah, this young man Nico, and I'm not going to do it either. I some days I get it, some days I don't. I don't feel good about today. I think today's the bad day. So maybe if I get it, but yeah, I'm gonna say, just Nico, what poise he had. I know that game was a neutral site game in Charlotte, but so far, the young man looks like the real deal. He sat last year, waited his turn, learned, got a year under his belt, matured some, and looks like he's ready to take this team. And obviously, with the new college football format and 12 teams getting in, I mean, you have to love the Vols' chances of being one of those 12 to get in. I would be. I know it's the SEC, and I know they've added Texas and Oklahoma, and things have gotten even tougher in conference play. But still, things to me would have to really get sideways, I think, because this team is really equipped. Obviously, it's still young in the season and injuries happen. And when those injuries happen, right, you have to be able to adjust. It's not if, it's when. And when it does, I think their depth is better than it's been in the past. But we'll see. Still a long ways to go. But, man, people are really, really excited in these parts. And it looks like this team is the real deal. That was impressive. They were clearly the better team, but NC State is supposed to be a good football team, and they just completely dismantled them.
Well, you got a huge one in 2 weeks. You got the Josh Heupel homecoming in Norman, kind of their Oklahoma's first SEC game. Defensively, are they good enough defensively to be able to keep good teams under 30? I mean, because obviously Tennessee's, we know they can score a bunch, but can they keep good teams, good offenses, in the 24 to 20, 21 to 28 range, where they don't have to win every game 40 to 38 when they're playing good teams?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think they have certainly put a heavy emphasis on the defense. I know that has been something that they've talked about a lot, and getting pressure to the quarterback and, winning the war in the trenches, which is, the case for not just the Tennessee Volunteers. It's for everybody, right? Whoever wins the war in the trenches usually wins the game, and they're no different. They want to get that done, but still, it's tough sledding in the SEC, as you just mentioned, going to Norman to take on Oklahoma. You talking about that game against Georgia? You
Yeah.
probably get a break with Florida being down, right? They look like they're kind of a hot mess, and I don't know if Billy Napier's going to get out of there after
Yep.
the season. By the way, their
Right.
schedule is ridiculously hard, so you probably get a break there. Missouri's been sneaky good,
Yep.
the last couple of years. Kentucky has been consistent for the first time in a long time, or maybe ever in their program's history. Mark Stoops done a good job of getting them around that 8-9 on a great year, 10 win. season. So it's not easy, but certainly you like where they are. They've got a couple, obviously 2-3 games that, but that is, again, Jason, that's the beauty. It is not that razor's edge anymore where we're not too far removed from it. It was just 2 teams.
Right.
Then there was that quick window of an expansion of 4 teams, and now you're talking about adding 8 more teams. And again, you can have a couple of hiccups and
Right.
still get an opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tennessee's a team to watch. Keep an eye on here this next month, especially if they get through that game in Norman. That they will be flying after that, heading into the meat of the SEC schedule. All right, let's transition to the National Football League. You're right there in Nashville. A brutal loss for the Titans over the weekend. Will Levis, disastrous turnovers there in Chicago. Chicago doesn't, they get out of there somehow. They win that game when Tennessee dominated that game for 50 plus minutes of that game. Give me a thought on Tennessee and the situation with Will Levis. Are they, obviously he's their guy this year for sure, but is this a guy that you think and the Nashville sports fans think can be the guy?
Well, as you can imagine, it has been quite interesting this week. Fans are fans for a reason. They're fanatics, right? And there's a whole bunch of people ready to throw Will Levis out with the bathwater. The Titans aren't going to do that. But there's a lot of concern because, like you said, that was a really gross loss. They're up 17-0, and they're in full control in week 1.
Yeah.
And they just splattered the bed. And just gave it away. And as you mentioned, the Will Levis interception, which was just inexcusable at this level. I mean, that has been the knock on him. One, in college, we saw him. He's a big guy. He's a big, strong guy with a big arm. He's got a lot of confidence. And in college, you can get away with that. And
Right.
he took too many. They've been trying to focus on when he takes off running, get down. Don't try to get that extra yard. Preserve yourself. Live to see the next play. And I know they've worked on that a lot with him. And the other part is just the throws.
Take a sack, punt or take a sack. It's okay.
Yep, exactly. Believe it or not, I know fans cringe when they hear the coaches say it is okay to take the sack or to throw it away. Again, to see that next play, right? Instead, you give it away on a horrible play. You just can't do that in the National Football League and expect to get away with it. He's still got a ways to go. I don't think anybody's ready to panic just yet, but It is setting up for an interesting weekend.
Aaron Rodgers comes to town.
And somebody's got to win, and somebody's going to be 0-2 between the Jets and the Titans. That's not a good place to be in the NFL. 0-2 holes are hard to dig out of. As crazy as that sounds with 17 games.
And give them credit. Their defense played tremendous against Caleb Williams and that, projected to be really good offense. And I think that surprised a lot of people how good that Tennessee defense played. And that's the thing. Tennessee's probably in a state this year where you're not going to score 30. If you can win 21-17, 24-20, that's about where you want to be if that defense can hold up. And just enough from Levis. Be a game manager, Levis. Don't kill you. But he killed him in week 1. Let's go around the division a little bit. Everybody thinks Houston is the team to beat. All the hype about Houston with the additions of what they've added in the offseason. Diggs, Mixon, and we saw both those guys have big week 1s. Do you see them as the clear favorite in that division, or you still think they still got some proving to do? Obviously with C.J. Stroud, young quarterback, young head coach, but boy, they've fortified their roster and trying to make a push here. Give me a thought or two about Houston?
It's a big win in Indianapolis on Sunday. Obviously Anthony Richardson back in the fold for the Colts, but by the way, I like the way the NFL has backloaded these division games, right?
Yeah.
You're playing a lot. You're finishing out your season like your last 5-6 games, or 5 of the 6 are against division foes, or
Right.
4 of the last 5. And so I like that. Hopefully there'll be meaningful games, down the stretch in the NFL. But Indianapolis and Houston did have a division game to start off the year, and that's a good win.
That is a really good win.
There's a lot of hype, right? And hype is and the hardest thing, and I've talked about this with players and coaches, Jason, I'm sure you have over the years, the hardest thing, like when you're down, the easiest thing, as crazy as it sounds, is to have that good season, to come up. The hardest part is when you come up and now you have expectations and everybody's talking about you. Can you sustain that? Can you keep level? Can you actually take another step forward? That's the hardest thing in sports, especially at the professional level, at the highest level where you're playing against the best players in the world. Houston had all the hype, right? They shocked everybody last year. No one thought the Texans were going to have the year that they had. They got to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. So now everybody's talking about, and as you mentioned, then you go out and you get aggressive. You have all this money to spend. You have had all these draft picks, and you really improve a roster that went to the playoffs last year and won a playoff game with proven veteran guys. And as you said, had impact. Joe Mixon was fantastic on Sunday. And they haven't really had a running game in a while in Houston, the Texans. And then you get a proven guy like Stephon Diggs to go along with already a receiving core that had a big year last year. But can they meet those expectations? And like I said, that's a gutsy win. Everybody expected them to win that game, and that's a hard win on the road to start off the season.
In division. Yep.
Thank you. And they did it. So, yeah, I mean, look, Jacksonville they paid their quarterback. They've got a talented roster, but I'm sorry, they're still the Jags. They're going to have to prove it. They're going to have to prove it, right? And Indianapolis, I need to see it too. The Titans need to see it. It is the Texans' division to lose, and we'll see if they can meet those expectations this year.
In your comment about the Jags, they gave one away against Miami. They were dominating Miami. Etienne fumbles on the 1-yard line, would have made it 24-7. Next play, Tyreek Hill goes 80 yards, and the whole game flips. And you know the question about Trevor Lawrence. Can he play consistently without turning the ball over? He's been a turnover machine the last year or two. We think most people have good thoughts that he can be an elite guy, but boy, he just can't. He just seems to take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back.
Would you love to go to our jobs and just be? I'm trying to be careful here because they're not
good.
Trash. They're above average. I don't think they're elite. They haven't proven to be elite.
Right.
The elite of the elite, and these guys, just because of the position they're playing, are just now you have to pay them 40-50 million a year just because. And they're not Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. He's an above average quarterback, and everybody's kind of waiting. Is he really elite? And we haven't seen that elite. He's not a tier 1 quarterback, and yet look at the money they pay. Man, we are in the wrong profession. Luxury to have, right? To go to your job and to be above average and to make buku money, and you don't have to even be great, and you're set for life. Man, gosh, I wish I was – I wish I had a more athletic frame.
Well, you're at baseball practice now. You better get that son of yours to be playing quarterback.
Or pitch.
Or pitch, that's right. So you can take care of dad for sure, man.
In baseball, you get the guaranteed contracts. I know we're starting to see it more in football, but at least in baseball, all these contracts are guaranteed. Football, now you're seeing it, like I said, a little bit more, but the guaranteed money. But, Deshaun Watson set that precedent with the all guaranteed contract, which looks like it's going to be an absolute disaster for the Browns. But we'll see.
Give me a thought about Anthony Richardson. Not a lot of starts at Florida, played in the SEC. He's got all the physical tools, but one, you and I both know, playing quarterback ain't about how strong and how it doesn't matter if you look like the Incredible Hulk. You got to be able to read defenses and throw the ball with some touch and anticipation. Do you think he has those skills, or is he still a major work in progress?
Yeah, it's an eye, right? It's an incomplete. It's just we haven't seen it. We don't know. Right now, he needs to just have a healthy season. He looked good on Sunday. Nice comeback. Put him in position to get a win, but there's so little. I mean, honestly, when I first started hearing the hype and I was talking to people like Anthony Richardson, like the first mock board that I saw months and months out from the draft, and I saw Anthony Richardson like top 5, I was like, what? Top 5? Are you kidding me? Right? Like we didn't see that in college. Like we didn't see top five. And I know a lot of it's projections. And like you said, he looks the part. There's no doubt about that. He looks the part, and some of it is projecting, and that's a risky thing because you're throwing darts, right? You're hoping for the bullseye, but we know more times than not you don't get the bullseye. I don't know. I don't know what Anthony Richardson is yet. I know that he's got a high ceiling, but he hasn't come close to reaching that high ceiling. And I know he's just in year two, and he was hurt most of last year, and his season was cut short. We'll see. Can he last this entire season? And if he does, what does he look like for an entire NFL season?
Give me a thought or two, and I'll get you out of here. Give me a thought or two, an impression from week one of the NFL, good or bad, of a team maybe that really surprised you, good in a good way, and obviously a team potentially that was a disaster. I'm thinking Cincinnati against New England with how Burrow and that crew played. Give me a thought or two about who an impression from week one.
Well, that's where I was going because that scab, or it's not a scab, that wound is still fresh. It's still bleeding. Jason, I was in 3 survivor pools.
Me too.
Biggest dodo brain ever. 3 survivor pools, and I picked the same team. That's how confident I was the Bengals were going to get that home win against the Patriots, who I thought are going to be horrible this year. And I am one and done in 3 survivor pools. Cincinnati never led. They weren't even close to winning that game. And I could not have been more disappointed than the Cincinnati Bengals. It is 100% my answer. Like I said, the wound is not a scab. It's still fresh. It's still bleeding. I've got Band-Aids on it. But the Bengals, what an egg they laid. I know T. Higgins didn't play, and I know the Jamar Chase thing is kind of weird and awkward, and Tyler Boyd is in Nashville here with the Titans. Joe Mixon's gone, as we already talked about.
And I'm gonna give you this. If you're Zach Taylor and the Patriots have run the ball down your throat all day and they've controlled the line of scrimmages, what are you doing punting on 4th and 5 with 2.5 minutes left in the game?
I was stunned.
What are you doing with Joe Burrow at quarterback? And I know he didn't play great Sunday, but you got Joe Burrow to get you 5 yards on 4th and 5.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I know it's 1 week, but it did not look good for the Cincinnati Bengals. And like you said, there were things that you could say, did the Patriots expose them? Is this what it's going to be like all season for them? Or do they get back in a room, study the film, talk about it, make adjustments, and get better? I don't know. Cincinnati, that was by far the biggest shocker of week one for me.
Last one, I'll get you out of any concern in Atlanta. Again, and by the way, the Bengals go to Kansas City this week, by the way. For the Bengal fans, they go to KC, probably looking at 0-2. Concern, you're near Atlanta. Are you concerned with what you saw out of Kirk Cousins in week one, or do you think it's just a little bit of rust from not playing in a while and you think they'll be okay?
Got a buddy down there that's been doing radio for a long time, a staple on Atlanta radio. And I talked to him, and you can imagine what they've been talking about all week, because this is what happens when you do what you did with a top 10 pick and you draft a quarterback for Cousins. It's all about Michael Penix now. And this is the door that the Falcons have opened up, and they're going to have to deal with this nonsense all year. And I don't know how they keep it from being a distraction. But if Kirk Cousins doesn't get things going and they don't start winning games, how do they just sit there on Michael Penix and not turn things over to him? It's a tricky dynamic. I would not want to have to navigate those waters. I think it's got a chance to be a total disaster. They have weapons. They've got a better team, a better roster. But I still question why they did that draft pick. Why would you waste a pick like that, a high pick, when you could help address another need? Instead, you have that pick sitting there holding a clipboard.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be a very interesting next 4 or 5 weeks in Atlanta, especially, again, they go to Philadelphia Monday night, very potentially 0-2 there. And boy, if they get off to a 1-3, 1-4 kind of start, and remember that deal is not, I mean, it's $100 million. It's basically a 2-year deal. So you could get out of the deal, potentially trade him at the end of this year. Somebody would take him for a 1-year deal at that price. It's not a ridiculous price, but you're right. A lot of issues in Atlanta potentially if they get off to a slow start. Darren McFarland, appreciate the time, man. Great catching up with you. Great work. Again, check out Darren. Darren's based out of Nashville. DMAC_Nash Sports is where you can find all his stuff online. And again, appreciate the time, Darren. We'll talk soon, my man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.